So Daredevil Born Again is out on Disney Plus, and now that we're halfway through the season, now that episode 4 has released on Disney Plus, I thought this was the perfect opportunity to talk about this series, and then from then on, we'll continue with each and every episode that drops. So without further ado, let's discuss Daredevil Born Again, aka Daredevil Season 4. Now I have some bullet points for all the episodes 1 through 4, and we're just going to go through the list, discuss everything that I found interesting in each and every episode up to this point, which, by the way, spoilers first of all, because we are going to be talking about major plot points inside the Daredevil Born Again series. And without further ado, let's discuss Daredevil Born Again, starting with episode 1. Now, as soon as episode 1 begins, we get to see the original gang back. We get to see Matt Murdock, we get to see Foggy, and we get to see Karen Page, the original trilogy of characters that carried us through seasons 1, 2, and 3 of Daredevil. That was on Netflix. Of course, it's on Disney Plus now. But I loved seeing these characters back. I loved seeing their chemistry. I love the fact that all of these characters have a history together. All of these actors have a history together. So when you see them back on screen, it's like, okay, we're back to old times. But sad to say, it doesn't last very long inside of this show because, of course, this show decides to start off with a very bold start, that being that Bullseye comes back, and while they're, spending time together, enjoying time inside this bar, Bullseye just has a full out on attack on not only our gang here, Foggy, Matt, and Karen, but on the entire bar in general, which, by the way, I thought this was a great way to get the audience's attention, to get us back into this series right out the gate. Nothing to wait for. We're right back into the action. And yeah, we get Bullseye versus the entire bar, but more specifically versus Daredevil. An insane fight scene as he makes his way through this bar, killing any and everyone he can come across. And of course, to start this whole thing off, Foggy gets pretty much sniped, right? He gets sniped. We see him fall, and then Matt just goes into this rage as he's trying to stop him. And these two characters eventually fight their way to the roof. Now, of course, we see Matt Murdock damn near kill Bullseye. He throws him off the roof. This is an insane start. I love the way that they chose to begin this season. I didn't expect to see the Bullseye character back after season 3 of Daredevil, so that was great to see him come back and not really make a cameo, but damn near make a cameo because he really is just a one-off for episode 1. And after all of this takes place, we've lost one of our main characters for the series, that being Foggy. Maybe there wasn't a place for him in the series anymore. Maybe they wanted to focus on other characters. I can completely understand that. I wasn't too upset about it, to be quite honest with you. And with the death of Foggy comes a new chapter in Matt Murdock's life, that being retirement. So the show chooses to make a time skip. We now see Matt Murdock just focusing on his law firm. He's built a pretty successful business with his other lawyers, these other business partners he's been working with, new characters that were introduced to, at least as far as I'm aware, if they were in the original show. I don't remember these characters. But yeah, we get the law firm, and another big thing that happens in this episode is we get the Kingpin back. We get Wilson Fisk back on screen, same actors and everything, which, by the way, I love that they brought every single original person back from the show. It makes it feel so authentic to the original series, and as a fan of the original series, I appreciate that a lot. Now, with Kingpin's return, we get a new chapter in Kingpin's life. Also, we get Kingpin campaigning. He's running for mayor now of New York City, and he eventually ends up winning this race to become mayor, and he is officially now the new mayor of New York City, Wilson Fisk. So a huge change for both of these characters and both of their lives. He's gone completely legit, we could say, at least at this very moment of this series. I love that we got this political side, that we got these cutaways to the average, New York citizen and their thoughts and ideas on everything that was happening inside of their city. That was a great, grounded perspective for the show, for the series to provide for the audience. And we get that sit down between Matt Murdock and Wilson Fisk, where he pretty much lets him know, hey, if you're going to be coming back and getting back involved, in the streets and in crime and in the mafia, all that type of stuff, I'm going to be coming back to stop you. Kingpin pretty much says, hey, once I'm here, I'm not letting that happen, okay? All that vigilante stuff, we're getting that out of here. A fantastic episode. Episode 1 was great. I loved the introduction back into the series. And with that being said, let's get into episode 2 for Daredevil Born Again. Now for episode 2, it starts us off with introducing us to the character of the White Tiger, a brand new vigilante that's running around New York City, especially since Daredevil's been inactive. And, you know, we get a small glimpse of him fighting crime, slightly on like some security footage for the most part. And then we get to see this character, you know, without his mask. He makes his way down into the train station of New York City, where he sees off-duty police officers fighting each other. Now at the time, he doesn't know that they're off-duty cops. He just sees random, you know, citizens fighting each other. He's a vigilante, so he wants to help out. He gets himself involved in the fight, and unfortunately, one of those off-duty cops does end up falling into the train rails and ends up getting hit by one of the trains. Now, as soon as this happens, a gun's drawn on the White Tiger. He's taken into the jail and charged with the murder of an off-duty cop, even though it was the other cop's fault, essentially. Now, Matt Murdock, being the great person that he is, he takes a trip down to visit the White Tiger and lets him know that he's going to be representing him in his court case. Which, by the way, I love that we're getting lawyer Matt Murdock back again, getting to see, you know, these courtroom drama scenes, the back and forth from the jury, the prosecutor, all of these different sides in the courtroom. It was fantastic to see that back inside of this series. It's some of the most interesting parts of this series, and come to find out, in all of this courtroom drama, there was actually a witness there in the train station to the event that takes place. Now, the cops are dirty bastards. We soon find out, you know, they all have the same tattoos, so they're pretty much a Punisher inspired gang inside the precinct of the New York Police Department. They all have the Punisher skull on them to identify themselves, and so that we can identify them as the viewers of this series. And Daredevil, being Daredevil, he of course picks up on the fact that they're going to try to kill this witness because they're not going to have cops go down for something, right? So immediately he makes his way to the witness's house, to his home. He tells him to leave. The cops do show up to the witness's house, trying to murder him, trying to kill him. Matt Murdock is there as Matt Murdock, as his lawyer form. You know, he's not there as Daredevil. And when he doesn't provide these dirty cops with the information that they want, he damn near gets himself killed inside of this scene that comes up. He gets the hell beat out of him. And of course, eventually he does end up defending himself. He beats the hell out of these cops. He whoops on them. And then that's pretty much the end of this plot line, this storyline inside of this episode. Now, one more I did want to touch on for episode 2 is the fact that the Kingpin, you know, he's doing the mayor business. He's trying to improve the city, at least as he sees fit. And because he is now the mayor of New York City, of course, this guy is a prolific criminal. You know, he has a crazy history, a crazy background inside of this city as being a criminal. So none of these cops want to work for Kingpin, and the chief himself is going to resign his position along with all of the cops. But he doesn't realize, you know, the type of mayor he's talking to. You're not talking to a regular elected official. You're talking to the Kingpin, buddy. So Kingpin blackmails this guy, shows him a picture of his kid, lets him know, hey, we know about this kid you've been hiding from everyone. You are hiding a child. Let that boy come home, you know. He pretty much tease this police chief, and we get a great little scenario there. Kingpin is back to doing dirty work, essentially, and all it took was one episode for him to turn his life back to crime. Crazy. But that was pretty much episode 2 wrapped up. A very interesting episode. I loved all the courtroom drama here. And with that being said, let's move on to episode 3 for Daredevil, Born Again. Now, jumping into episode 3, come to find out our witness, Torres, cannot testify. He doesn't want to testify on stand because he takes a look at all those cops, you know, in the courtroom, and he says, it's not really worth it to testify against the entire police department, get one of their officers arrested, and end up potentially dead from all of these dirty cops in here. So in self-preservation mode, after getting to the stand, he chooses not to testify. Dick move, ruins Matt Murdock's case damn near. It shows all the dirty cops in the courtroom with their little tattoo, you know, their gang tattoo, their Punisher logo. But Matt Murdock, being Matt Murdock, he does end up eventually getting the White Tiger off this case. He's a freed man. He's acquitted of murder. But unfortunately, as soon as this vigilante gets back onto the street, he ends up being murdered by a random figure with a Punisher vest on. Now, the show does, you know, kind of lead you to believe that it was the Punisher himself that killed him, but you never actually get a confirmation of that, at least to this point. It's just someone who sort of wears the outfit he likes to wear, but they're covering up their face, which is something that Frank Castle never really does. He doesn't really care to cover up his face, so it could or it couldn't be him. We haven't exactly found that out yet. Now, that was pretty much all the important plot lines, storylines that happened inside of episode 3. One problem that I did have with this is they didn't give us enough of the White Tiger. And in fact, up into this episode, it feels like a lot of these very important plot lines that could have, played out over a couple episodes are just being ended so quickly inside of this series, such as Wilson Fisk becoming mayor in episode 1. It all happens like that. Suddenly he's campaigning, and by the end of the episode, he's already mayor. Crazy. And then in this episode, White Tiger gets freed. We're just introduced to him in the last one, and by the end of this episode, he's already dead. I wanted to see what this character had in stock. I wanted to see what this character had in the future going on. They showed him in an amazing outfit, a great vigilante outfit. Looks like they spent a lot of money on his costume design just for this to be all thrown away because he dies. As soon as we're introduced to him, he's already dead. This show is moving very fast here. I'm not exactly sure how I feel about that aspect of the series. I do feel like, some things need to breathe so we could really fill them out, but we're rushing through, so I guess that's what it is. That was pretty much all of the important details for episode 3, and with that being said, let's move into episode 4 for Daredevil Born Again. Now, while episode 4 wasn't as dense as the other ones, there was, very interesting plot points that did take place inside of this episode. And we're going to start with Matt Murdock pretty much finding Frank Castle, discovers where he is. He finds him in this building, hiding out. He has a fantastic arsenal, a nice little setup for himself in New York City, a nice little room for himself. And they have a conversation there. And I thought this was great. I thought this was a fantastic scene. We get a heart-to-heart conversation from Matt Murdock and from Frank Castle where, Frank touches him in his heart. He lets him know, hey, I know how you're really feeling inside right now. I know what you actually want to do because I feel this every single day, which of course, Frank Castle's backstory, his family was murdered, and Matt Murdock losing his best friend. He knows how that feels, He knows what Matt is going through and what he wants to do. He wants to return to Daredevil. He wants to get back to brutalizing criminals, essentially. But Matt Murdock is trying his best to keep that part of him at bay. And I loved getting to see those emotions expressed from Murdock. I loved getting to see this heart-to-heart between these two characters. And we move on from that scene onto Wilson Fisk, the Kingpin. They do sort of the George Bush 9/11 scene is what I got out of this scene. He's in a classroom with children singing to him because he's the mayor now, and he ends up having news leak from his campaign. They get the news while he's with these children, and it just sort of reminded me of when George Bush, got the tap on the shoulder. Hey, sir, 9/11 just happened, planes just hit the towers, and he sort of just brushes it off, keeps it going. But of course, once they leave this school, Wilson Fisk is very, very upset about this leak inside of his mayor operation. He wants to know where this leak came from. And, one of his cronies, one of the people working for him, ends up admitting to this leak, to this betrayal of Wilson Fisk. But surprisingly enough, instead of like bashing his head with a car, as we seen in our introduction to the Kingpin in the original Daredevil series, Kingpin actually forgives this guy. He likes that, one, this character admires him, adores him, worships the ground he walks on and every single word he says. But two, that this guy stepped up. He didn't make Wilson Fisk go out of his way to search for it. He immediately admits his wrongdoing. And, Wilson Fisk can see that that takes courage and that takes loyalty, which he respects quite a lot. So he forgives this guy. He gives him a warning. And let's move on to the end of this episode where we get one of the craziest scenes up into this whole series so far, which first starts with Wilson Fisk and Vanessa going to couples therapy because one, she cheated on him while he was gone throughout all these years, and he's been trying to work his way through that. They've been trying to work their way through that. He's been trying to forgive her for that. The person that she cheated with has disappeared off the face of the earth. Neither one has heard of them up to this point so far. And when we get to the end of episode 4, Wilson Fisk goes to some hideout, some location. He's having a nice dinner to himself. And when you look to the side, there's a man in a cage, and it's Vanessa's lover, or Vanessa's former lover, that is, trapped there. Wilson Fisk has had him trapped since he's disappeared, and he pretty much just is keeping him there, keeping him captive. Wilson Fisk has not changed, y'all. The Kingpin is still the Kingpin, and he's pretty much been like torturing this guy, I want to say, which was diabolical. I loved that out of this character. I thought that was a perfect way to show how sinister this character truly is and still is up to this point in the series, and a great little twist there in the series. But that would pretty much wrap up everything I wanted to talk about from the halfway point of season 1 of Daredevil Born Again, you know, episodes 1, 2, 3, and 4. Of course, this season's going to be 8 episodes, so, you know, they've shortened it down quite a lot from what I think was originally 13 episodes in the original Daredevil series, right? And outside of the one issue that I do have with this series, that being, we seem like we're moving very fast here. It's slightly understandable considering we're 8 episodes now instead of 13, where in the original, it felt like they really just let everything breathe. Now we don't get that as often and as much, but that's okay because it's still fantastic. We're still operating at a very high level here inside of this series. We got our original cast back. All the production quality level is there. All of the characters, they feel authentic. They feel true to who they were in the original series, and they're doing a fantastic job here. This is easily the best, you know, series that Disney Plus has came out with in a very long time relating to any of these Marvel characters. Is it as good as the original 3 seasons that we got on Netflix? Well, I'm gonna hold my opinion on that until after we get these next 4 episodes. I'll save, you know, that take for the final review of this entire season completely, you know, once we get to episode 8. But from here on out, I am going to be doing, you know, an episode 5 review, an episode 6, 7, and 8 review, all separately. They're not going to be bunched up like this because we'll be doing them as they release, as they drop from here going forward on the channel. If I was to rate the series so far up to this episode 4 point, you know, up to the halfway point of the series, I would give it a 8.5 out of 10. It gets the 8.5 out of 10. I think it's excellent so far. I'm hoping, you know, in these next 4 episodes, the quality keeps going up. We get, you know, more depth out of our characters, more action scenes, more story development, character development. And yeah, I think leading up to the finale, we're in for a special treat here with Daredevil Born Again. They're doing an amazing job so far. I like what I'm seeing. And that's pretty much it for the review. As far as, you know, the channel going forward, I know I've been very sporadic with the posting schedule. Of course, as always, we're looking to maintain consistency on the channel. I've said that a million times in the past, but seriously, as you can see, I got a whole new setup here. I got a new set going, and yeah, I love this new setup. I may or may not still be adding, you know, other parts and additions to it, you know, more lights, more posters, things like that coming in the future. I guess you'll see as, you know, the videos keep going forward. But as far as what we do here on Demigod ENT, if you don't know what we do here on Demigod ENT, we do film and TV reactions and reviews and other movie-based content. So if you're interested in any of this movie-based content, you're in the right place. Hit subscribe, hit the like button if you enjoyed this video, and I'll catch you in the next review, guys. Peace.